ago, you couldn't get 15 Jews in a room to openly question what Israel was doing. And now we have thousands upon thousands.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. We'll start with something that may seem ridiculous. The Israeli government has passed a law giving hospitals the authority to ban the bringing in of bread and bread products into those facilities during the Jewish holiday of Passover. They do this because the Orthodox sect of Judaism says it is forbidden to do so during that 8-day holiday. No doubt, some of these hospitals will send their security guards on the lookout for the forbidden rolls and croissants. This regulation, this law applies to everyone, Jew, Christian, Muslim, or people of no particular faith. It applies in private hospitals as well as public hospitals. This rule may seem trivial or even silly, but it shows the power of the Orthodox, ritual-obsessed sect over life in Israel. The last Israeli government actually fell over this issue back in 2021. The Israeli Supreme Court ruled that hospitals did not have the authority to make such a ban. When the government of Prime Minister Bennett tried to enforce the court decision, one Idit Silman quit the coalition. This resulted in the fall of the government, new elections, and the rise of the Netanyahu Ben-Gvir coalition. In other news, the Israeli Temple Mount groups who seek to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and replace it with a Jewish temple on March 31st called on their followers to go to the mosque courtyards during Passover and perform animal sacrifices like their ancestors did 2,000 years ago. The groups say they will give a money prize to anyone who goes to the grounds and attempts to do the sacrifice. Speaking of Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Netanyahu pause in his campaign to wreck the Israeli court system came as part of a package deal. In exchange for not leaving the government, Ben-Gvir will become head of an Israeli National Guard. That's in addition to his post as Minister for National Security and his position at the head of the Israeli Police and Border Guard. In essence, a thug will be given a personal government-armed militia. I've written about this in detail at the Promoting Enduring Peace blog. We'll link to it at the Struggle. About Ben-Gvir, some interesting things came out about him in response to a legal petition that unsuccessfully tried to get him declared unfit for office. In the prosecutor's office response to the petition, the state detailed Ben-Gvir's criminal record from the years 1993 to 2007. It includes 15 criminal indictments, which resulted in 13 full or partial convictions. In the two other cases, he was found to have broken the law but was not formally convicted. These convictions are in the areas of terrorism or racism. So a 13-time convict is in charge of Israeli cops and a personal militia. A few days ago, Ben-Gvir gave a lie-filled address in Jerusalem concerning the Supreme Court.
אתם יודעים למה צריך רפורמה משפטית? כי כשבאנו להציע חוק עונש מוות למחבלים, מי התנגד? וכשרצינו להציע חוק חסינות לחיילים, מי התנגד? וכשדיברנו על עונשי מינימום בחוק הפרוטקשן, מי התנגד? וכשרציתי לעשות סבב במשטרה ולשלוח את עם ישב לבית ספר לקצינים, מי התנגד? חברים, חברים, אני רוצה להתוודות. יצאתי היום והייתי בישיבת ראשי קואליציה, והאמת היא שגמלה בליבי החלטה לצאת מהממשלה. כי חשבתי, ואני עדיין חושב, שצריך להצביע על הרפורמה היום. וחשבתי ואני עדיין חושב שלא צריך להיכנע לאנרכיסטים. אבל כשיצאתי החוצה וראיתי את ההפגנה של האנרכיסטים, הבנתי שאם אני אפרוש אני נותן להם ניצחון. הם לא ינצחו, הם לא ינצחו.
We know that all he spoke were lies because the Israeli Supreme Court never ruled on those issues. We mentioned last week that Ben-Gvir in 2015 was at a wedding reception where some celebrated the burning to death of the Dewabsha baby. Well, this week in a town north of Ramallah, arsonists threw firebombs into a Palestinian house. Parents and children narrowly escaped. No doubt Ben-Gvir will launch a thorough investigation. On the 30th, some 20,000 supporters of Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir marched in the Israeli streets. Some chanted, "Burn your village to the ground." The rally was organized by Im Tzurtu, an Israeli fascist group that specializes in harassing or beating Palestinians and Israeli Jews who seem to be dating. At the rally, a Confederate flag was waved. Also, this obscene banner, a copy of one that was used during the attempted insurrection on January 6, 2021. It does need to be pointed out that a rally of 20,000, though large, was dwarfed by the rallies of Israeli Jews standing up for their own democratic rights. Their demonstrations were 10 times as large. March 20 is celebrated by Palestinians as Land Day. Here's a bit of its history.
Today is Land Day in occupied Palestine, and this is the story. In early 1976, the Israeli occupation forces designated the farmlands of Arabeh, Sakhnin, and Der Hanna as military training zones, and the residents of those villages were told entering their lands would be a criminal offense. Shortly after that, the Zionist regime led by Yitzhak Rabin, the mastermind behind the Israeli break the bones policy, stole 20,000 dunams of Palestinian lands in the Galilee, declaring them state-owned. A general strike was called by the Initiative for the Defense of Lands, a committee established by political activists, intellectuals, lawyers, journalists, and doctors. Palestinians within the 1948 territories burned tires and closed streets to block the Israeli army, which had raided numerous villages with military vehicles and tanks, wounding about 50 Palestinians, arresting 300 and killing 6. Despite the violent crackdown, or perhaps because of it, the strike was carried out successfully, and the repression, which was meant to deter nationalist sentiment, instead ignited an anti-colonial mood so magnetic it connected the fragmented realities of Palestinians everywhere. 47 years later, people throughout the world continue to honor the memory of those 6 martyrs by protesting, planting trees, and reminding one another that Land Day is not a commemoration of a past tragedy, rather a commemoration of something ongoing and present tense. Since that bloody day in 76, countless new settlements have overwhelmed our land. Our towns continue to be encircled by colonies and military outposts. Everywhere you look on the map, there's a story of dispossession. In the Naqab, Palestinian Bedouins are uprooted and replaced by pine trees. In Silwan, the occupation forces demolish homes to fulfill a biblical fantasy. In Sheikh Jarrah, ethnic cleansing comes disguised as a real estate dispute. And in Masafir Yatta, ancestral villages are made into firing zones. Out of all the loot, the land remains indisputably the most valuable.
This year, Haaretz said that 3,000 Palestinians marched for Land Day inside of Israel. Several hundred Jewish Israelis also took part in solidarity. Ofer Kasif, a Jewish member of parliament, said, "The Palestinians have been the ultimate victim of the policies of all Israeli governments, but the danger is even greater now." According to him, what led a relatively large number of Israeli Jews to join this year's march was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent promise to Ben-Gvir to establish a national guard. "It's clear who the first victims of these militias will be," Kasif said. "And of course they will also target protesters and indeed any dissident. We face a real fascist threat, and I think that led many Jews to come here today, certainly more than last year." Israeli forces wounded 5 Palestinians, some with live fire, during the Land Day events in the Gaza Strip. Now for some good news, our formal announcement of our Courage Award. Hello, I'm Stanley Heller, Executive Director of the Middle East Crisis Committee. We started in 1982. We're based in Connecticut. We've been outraged about the arrests and treatment of political prisoners in Egypt. Last fall, during the COP27 climate conference in Egypt, we sponsored a demonstration in Hartford in front of the Federal Building. The Federal Building because the U.S. is a great ally of the tyranny in Egypt. We wanted to keep up the pressure, so we came up with the idea of giving an award. So on Thursday, April 13th, we're honoring jailed Egyptian activist Alaa Abd El-Fattah with our Courage Award. The event will take place at Central Connecticut State University in room 101 of the Henry Barnard Hall at 3 p.m. It's free and all are welcome. A book of Abd El-Fattah's writings has come out, published by the 7 Stories Press. It's called You Have Not Yet Been Defeated. Will be addressed by Dan Simon, who's the publisher of 7 Stories Press and also editor of Abd El-Fattah's book. And we'll be selling the book at the below cost price of $10. It's a substantial book. More about Alaa and the event at our website. Here's the link. The website page even shows you where to park. So please come to Central on April 13th to honor Alaa Abd El-Fattah and to work for the freedom of Egypt's political prisoners. More about the event and our weekly TV show at thestrugglevideo.org. Here's a piece of state legislation that involves everyone because it is involved with global warming and the world's climates. There was a Connecticut Senate Bill 1145 that included a small progressive step offering rebates to people who bought electric-powered lawn equipment rather than the loud, stinking, carbon dioxide-producing lawn equipment. The thing is, the language was stripped out of the bill in the Environment Committee. Promoting enduring peace is asking us to try to get the language put back in. The key legislator is Senator Lopez. No matter where you live, contact him by going to his web email at the address you see here. Urge him to put back the language on rebates to buy lawn equipment, electric lawn equipment. Going back several weeks now to the rally in Brooklyn that was sponsored by Jewish Voice for Peace New York, to hear some excellent remarks by Esther Farmer.
I'm so excited to welcome up somebody who's been in this movement for decades, an elder who I look up to. Please welcome Esther Farmer from JVP in New York City.
I am so thrilled to see you all out here today, I can't tell you. One of the nice things about getting older is that it gives you a longer range perspective. I was born after World War II, and even though I did not live through German fascism, it was baked into my brain and my heart. We older folks, we know what fascism looks like. We know what it feels like. We know what it smells like. And let me tell you, that stink is coming full on from Israel. And lest I be accused of singling out Israel unfairly, we are also in the midst of a struggle against fascism throughout the world and right here in the U.S. And the same people that are pushing fascism here are supporting the Netanyahu atrocity over there. So back to perspective, as so many of my fellow speakers said, this struggle for Palestinian human rights did not start today. It's been going on for over 75 years since the creation of Israel. My father was born in Hebron, Palestine. My family is Jewish, as were 10% of the population in Palestine at that time. They were Palestinian Jews. Yes, we exist. For the most part, there was very little tension between Jews and Muslims in Palestine at that time, until an outside entity, the United Nations, with the financial support of the United States, declared the land to be a Jewish state. I mean, what could go wrong with that plan? Since that time, no one has been safe. Let me repeat that. No one has been safe. Not Jews or Palestinians or anybody. That catastrophe, or Nakba, since that time, Palestinians have been abused, occupied, and erased. 750,000 Palestinians were expelled or fled the ensuing war. And lest we be confused by the folks that say there are violent acts on both sides, atrocities on both sides, let's clear that up. Every death, every violent act stems from the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. We as Jews know that where there is oppression, there is resistance. and Palestinians have been resisting for over 75 years. They have stones and homemade rockets. The Israelis have tanks, bombs, missiles, and nuclear weapons. And now, the current Israeli government says they want to wipe out Palestinian villages. And we know who pays for this? We do. $3.8 billion of our taxes are paying for the stink of Israeli fascism. If I sound a little bitter, it's because I am. This has been going on for too long, folks. I'm outraged, but I am not despairing. Because here's the thing about perspective. I've been in this fight for over 50 years. 15 years ago, you couldn't get 15 Jews in a room to openly question what Israel was doing. And now, we have thousands upon thousands, and you all are a part of this. The narrative is changing, the mask is off. And let me tell you, the Israeli propaganda machine is petrified of you. And they should be. And we should be proud of that. While they tell us we can't be Jewish unless we support Israel, we're building a movement of thousands of people whose philosophy does not rely on the hatred of an entire people. How can we despair if we have that? So here's the thing. Israel cannot do what it's doing without our tax dollars. Schumer is a powerful politician, and we are his constituents. We are saying loudly and proudly, as Jews and as people of good conscience everywhere, end military funding to Israel. That's the right demand for this moment. Thank you all for being here. You give me hope.
Veterans for Peace have unfortunately been taking a campus position against Ukraine. Some of their members, who are fed up after a year of struggling from within and seeing Veterans for Peace endorse that Answer Code Pink rally against Ukraine that was held in the middle of March, decided to form a group, Veterans for Peace, for Ukraine. We'll see next a bit from their first webinar featuring a Ukrainian named Yosh.
All right, Yosh asked me to introduce her by playing a 2-minute video from just sort of its introduction to the work of the feminist workshop, which she is the head of.
And it's dynamite, y'all. I love this.
Yeah. I want to know about what your activism was like before the recent invasion, and what's it been like since the most recent invasion, and
Yeah, so actually, for this particular moment, our activities quite similar to what we have been doing before the full-scale invasion, but it's just all our activities include something in different ways connected to the current situation. And so before the full-scale invasion, our main purpose is to build a feminist community in Lviv and in Ukraine. And we work with community, organizing some events, educational events or non-formal events, and producing content. During COVID, we started to work more in online. We build communities around our Instagram or around our video content on YouTube. So we were spreading feminist ideas and developing a feminist agenda, mainly with young people, queer young people. And by sometimes we did some all Ukrainian projects or international projects and worked on this agenda with our colleagues. But when the war started, as you saw in this video, we focused at the beginning of full-scale invasion, we focused more on humanitarian.
That's our program for today. This has been Stanley Heller for The Struggle Video News.